Interesting.
There we go. And we're back.
Welcome.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, although there are no ladies, but we're back.
Sure gender?
We're back, and we're going to go through some of the the matchups from last week, just kind of do those quickly, more of an overview, not really going matchup by matchup, and then we'll get into the previews for this Thanksgiving week 12. Is it week 12? Week 12. So fun 3 days or fun 3 games on Thursday, and then it goes into Sunday and a Monday night. So a lot of NFL spread out across 4 days. So should be pretty fun.
Yeah, should be exciting. We got quite a few games tomorrow. Turkey Day games. I like it.
Turkey.
So yeah, you want me? I'll go ahead and share my screen. We can kind of jump into what happened last week. A lot of wild matchups. I mean, we're not going to dig into these one by one, but I mean, it's hard not to call out. Jerry and I went off in a battle for the top 2 high-scoring scores of the week. Jerry edged me by 3, and man, you were shit talking. It was deservedly so. Got 28 points from your defense. You picked up Darnell Mooney after I dropped him when Scales called him out as being a terrible play. He goes off. The play in the Thursday night game where New England should have just ran the ball out to win it, and they kick a field goal to give me 3 points. Thought I got you there, and then the pick 6 that happens. That was pretty wild, but sets up. I think that matchup was indicative of what we're looking at in our league. When you look top to bottom, there's just this middle that is just a huge playoff race. I mean, really, you've got Shmee in first, who's been there pretty much all year long. You got, Des and Confusion in there at second after a close win. But after that, I mean, I guess you could put CT in that upper echelon. 6 and 5, you got 2 6 and 5 teams, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 and 6 teams. And then how can you not talk about Jack storming back from his awful start to be 4 and 7 and in the playoff conversation? Just a wild week.
It was a wild week. I mean, our matchup was great. I thought you were maybe going to catch me with Mixon there because I wanted that game to be over, and they got the ball back, and then Mixon scored like on the first play. I was like, holy crap, I may blow this. And CeeDee Lamb was out, and I kicked Parker's little cozy coop, and Annika got really mad at me for getting so frustrated. But Bryson, I don't think it's a secret. You're like the Yankees of, fantasy football. Everyone wants to try and beat you. You played so well over the.
Good though. Like I'm decent. Like I've never historically been great. I feel like people are they overestimate me. I've never put up the points to justify that reputation that I feel like I have. If it was Jack or even Nels, I could get it, but I'm not that good.
I mean, I kind of look at Jack the same, and he's just having a down year with all those points against. He's like 200 over the next closest guy almost. So that's just a bad year.
And I mean, I think that for him 3 in a row after being in it. I think I called out how many weeks ago it was that he was at a 0% chance of making the playoffs. And I mean, that's changed quite a bit.
Yeah. Have you ever seen it this packed and we get an extra week? I mean, a lot can happen between.
So I think that's a great the place to start with it. And I'll go back to this, but I was looking at PI data. And if you kind of look over here where I'm highlighting, this is this season's. And outside of the Woat being, on track to be the worst team of all time at a negative 258, we don't have a team over 100 power index, which is essentially one standard deviation better than the average. I'd say when you start getting into the 150 power indexes, you're talking about a very strong team. And really what you got is a bunch of just below average to slightly above average teams. And I think that's indicative of what we're seeing in the standings. You could argue CT's maybe underperforming and Shmee's overperforming, but really the total points tells this story. There's just not much of a gap in the league this year.
It's got some parity, just like the real NFL does. It's great. It keeps everybody in it. I mean, everybody's in it all the way down to Jack. Like you said, Mod's really the only one who's out of it. He just can't seem to get the luck on his side. First overall pick 2 years in a row, gets Christian McCaffrey both times, gets hurt, and still ends up at the bottom. You hate to see it, but hopefully he's back next year.
Yeah, and just I know this show's double. It's because you have the same score. This is you and Nels actually
Oh,
tied
gotcha.
14. But yeah, you call out Jack. I mean, he set a 38 power index above league average in points and still sitting towards the bottom of the league. Another thing I wanted to call out, CT couldn't join us today, but I've got an important stat to call out. CT becomes the first player in league history to get to 100 wins in his career at 167-0. So a nice round of applause to CT for being the first to get there. Jack's climbing up there at 96. I've got 91. RO's at 90. But really nice to see. And Jerry, you're 2 losses away. 2 losses away from
Oh, I
100.
can't wait. I'm gonna pop bottles. One of those might happen this week, so I'll only be one away.
It might. The other thing I wanted to kind of call out, unless you've got any highlights, I mean, I know the Woat lost his 9th in a row, and again, that's just we'll get into it in matchups. Pretty sad, but I was going to flip over to Fantasy Pros. They've got projected chance to make the playoffs, which I thought was an interesting thing to debate, and we can talk about what we think. But I don't know if you can see that. Let me enhance,
And
enhance,
zoom in.
enhance,
There you go.
enhance. All right, so this is where, based on current record and where they're projecting things out, where we'll go. So basically, they've got, Shmi is in the playoffs, 100%. They've got CB and CT virtually locked in, and then after that, it's just a shit show. I mean, Nels and Wes are, slightly odds-on favorites to make it in. They've got me at a 47% being that 16, but you look at, Taylor, RO, Scales and you are still all over a quarter chance, quarter to a third chance of making the playoffs. And even Jack, again, we called him out, 0% chance at one point, sitting there at a nearly, 20% chance of making the playoffs, which is just wild from where he started. And Fantasy Pros likes his team. I think they have him like the #1 power ranking going forward. So he's getting a boost with a 3% chance to make the championship. So just it was interesting just to see how they have this playing out. They've got 7-7 making the playoffs and being the cutoff. I wouldn't be surprised if 6-8 if you see a 6-8 team get in.
Yeah, a high 6-8 or 6-8 team with high points definitely still has a shot.
I agree.
Let's go back to the matchups. I think CB and Taylor's. I don't even know if they listen to this, but I think that one ended crazy because you can see he only won by 2 points, and CB has Mike Williams. And I didn't watch the game, but I just looked at my phone, and I think Mike Williams scored like a 70-yard or 50-yard bomb with like 2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
And then poor Taylor starting Los Angeles defense, who's terrible.
Yeah, it was a 53-yard touchdown on blown coverage right in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So, I mean, that gave him the victory. And, I mean, what a crazy Monday night game for them.
And who would have guessed that the Chargers would give up -1? They'd get -1 points against Big Ben coming out, no practice, coming out of COVID protocol. I mean, and Dak with 2 points. I mean, yeah, rough loss for Taylor.
Very rough. That sucks. I didn't even notice that.
Yep. I mean,
those are good points.
That's a rough one. I mean, Shmi had a big battle taking down CB. I don't know if CB.
That's matchups. That's this
Oh,
week.
oh, we got projected. It's like, what the heck? Yeah, it was Woat versus Goat. Well, Goat this year. Yeah, I mean, but a lot of big playoff matchups. I mean, you had me falling down, you moving right back into the playoff hunt. You had, must win for Jack to get back in it, taking out Scales, knocking him down a rung. Just all these matchups. I feel like with everyone so close are just so important. Nels in West, that was huge. I mean, these are all matchups that you look back at the end of the year and go like, man, damn, point here, point there. That could have been it.
Yeah. CB won 5 in a row. It's pretty impressive. He's only spent 25 of his budget too. He's got the most money.
I don't know if that's an active strategy or he's just, not a big waiver person. Although he's made 11 waiver, he's made the second most waiver moves.
No, that's priority.
He's only made 13. That makes sense. The Woats made the fewest at 7, then Taylor. Interesting. All righty. Do we cut the recording here and then go into matchups, or how are we typically doing that?
Nah, I'll just timestamp it
Yeah,
so
but
everyone can skip this if they want. Just go straight into matchups.
all right, let's do it. Who do you want to start with?
We'll do first for second, and then we can go to yours and down. But I always
No,
like to
we can go
start with
first.
the big one.
Let's go by playoff implications. So I do think let's go first versus second. We got CB versus Shmi here. You want to start?
Go ahead. Give us the stats.
Oh yeah. Why don't you start while I pull up those stats, and I'll do those in the background going forward.
Nice. Shmi is catching CB on a great week. Last week, Mays was catching Shmi on a good week, but he still was able to pull it out with great performances from Harris and especially from Eckler. I think he had 4 touchdowns. Herbert just continues to find him. What a shootout in that Pitt versus LA Chargers game. So Shmi was able to win that, and now he's catching CB with Hopkins out and the one of the steals of the draft and James Conner out on bye. There's only 2 teams on bye, and he just happened to have 2 of the better players from Arizona, so that's really going to hurt him. And because he's not really active on the waiver wire, you can see he's got
He's got
Penny
yep.
Penny in, and he's got OBJ, who I don't think he's really found a fit in the Rams offense yet. He could if he stays there, but I just think this is only going to be his second game, or I
Yeah,
guess
I don't
second
think
game,
CB
third week.
listens to this pod, but I'd be really surprised if he ends up running Penny and Beckham out there. I'd rather play I think Van Jefferson or probably over Beckham at this point. But yeah,
I
yeah,
thought the same thing. Elliott could have maybe a good bounce back game. He didn't really do much last week, and they could be hungry at. I think the Cowboys usually play really well at home, so I expect that to be a shootout. But I mean, I think he would need to have some good pickups to try and beat Shmi. I mean, Shmi already has Gallup with CeeDee Lamb most likely going to be out. That's a good pickup to have. He's got Eckler and Harris, 2 of the best running backs in the league. Kupp is the best wide receiver, fantasy points wise, and then Stafford throwing to him. I mean, we talk about it every week how stacked his team is, and that's why he's in first. And he caught his main competition on a great week.
yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Shmi just seems to have a lot of advantages going forward. One, he's probably got the first or second strongest team in the league just in general. And you called out the Arizona being on bye really hurts CB and
Yeah,
exposes his depth. Pitts could come bounce back. I mean, Zeke, I worry a little bit that they're splitting carries too much for my liking if I was an owner of him. Josh Allen, yep, we'll see if he bounces back. But the receivers, I mean, yeah, Mike Williams caught that busted play last week. Beckham, not a huge fan of at this point. I just don't see him competing with Scary Terry and Cooper Kupp over
right,
there from a receiver perspective. I've got pretty easy win for Shmi here. I'd take him by, gosh, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 25 points.
right. We'll see what
Uh,
moves he does. This is just going off of what he has in his lineup, but I still would take Shmi. So
Yep, and if he wins, that'll bring the if Shmi gets a victory, that would move him to 7-7 all time against CB. Right now, CB has that lead 7-6, but Shmi's won the last 2. He won last year 102 to 89, and they matched up earlier this year in week 1, and Shmi won 90 to 87. So
that's
Shmi
right.
on the up and up against CB. So we're both on Shmi here.
Yep.
All
I
right,
forgot that all the matchups were making round 2, so
this is
everybody
round 2.
everybody already played each other. So this is round 2.
Let's go into you want to do you and West. That's a big playoff implication.
Sure.
All right. You can start talking while I pull stuff up.
I got to wait for some injury news to come out. I don't know what Ingram is gonna do. If Kamara's out and Ingram's in, I may start him on Thursday. But if both of them are out, I'm probably gonna look at putting Freeman in there. Neither one's really a good option. I'm with after losing Henry and swinging and missing on some of my running back pickups. I'm just floating whatever I can out there and hoping my wide receivers and Aaron Rodgers can lead me to a victory. CD is going to be huge. I really hope he can play with Amari Cooper out, and Dallas probably going to throw it all over the Raiders defense on Thanksgiving at home. I really want him to play. I think he can have a huge game. If he doesn't, I'm probably going to roll out Lockett, who's playing against Washington, which is one of the worst defenses in the NFL, especially with Chase Young out. But he has Metcalf on the other side, so I think Wes and I are really going to be tuned into that Monday Night Football game. I'm still waiting for some news, but Wes didn't have Lamar last week, so he gets to put him back in. He's got great running backs with Cook, Fournette, and then I think he has the choice between Gordon and another one. And it looks like he's going with Gordon, which is a good move because the Chargers have one of the worst run defenses. It's a division game. It's at home, so Gordon could get a lot of carries. He usually splits with that other guy. I always forget how to pronounce his name, but Williams. But it looks like they use Gordon in the passing game, and they also do use him toward the end zone. He doesn't, so he's not like an absolute workhorse, but still gets enough touches that I think that projected of 10 is definitely something he can do. I'm not liking my chances. I blew out my projections last week. I think I was only projected for like 90 something, and went way over that. But this is a huge game. It's almost must win for me, and I still think West is going to take it just because my running backs aren't as good. He's going to have. I guess Cook is going against a good San Fran D, but I would still lean West here. Just quarterback matchup to Jackson against a division opponent, and then I'm going against the Rams, which usually has a great front four, which will put a lot of pressure on Rodgers. And I heard a stat on another podcast that this is the lowest completion percentage and QB rating when he's against pressure of his career. So not looking like a great matchup.
Yeah, I'm looking at the all-time. I mean, you guys similar to the last one. Jerry, you've got an 8-7 record against West so far. So again, West could get to 500 here. He beat you earlier this year, 86-84, and beat you in the consolation last year. So similar story where you're trying to right two wrongs and get back on the winning side against West here. But I'm kind of with you. I think to your point, your team performed at its optimal level last week. I don't exactly expect that to happen 2 weeks in a row, but who knows? But I also, some of the matchups Wes has, I don't absolutely love. As you mentioned, Dalvin Cook against San Fran. That could be a tough matchup. Lamar coming off being sick. We'll see what goes on, although Cleveland's defense has been just abysmal this year.
Yeah.
I pretty much agree with everything you said. Like, I think on paper, Wes's team is a lot better. I do think he might underperform a little bit, but I have a tough time seeing you break 90 this week. I've got Wes by probably 10, and he may struggle to hit 100 too.
I can see that. It hurts when you lose I potentially could be down my first 3 picks. So no Henry, no Ridley, no Lamb.
Yeah, was there ever an update this week on Ridley's status, or was the update there was no update?
I think it was basically he is eligible to come off this week, but they haven't said he's coming back or anything. I think that was the only update. He's eligible to come off that IR he was on, but I bet he doesn't play this whole season. I don't think Atlanta's. I think 2 weeks ago, Atlanta was technically in the 7 or 8 spot, but man, they've looked so bad the last 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't come back. I wouldn't.
I mean, like you said, it just leaves you in a rough spot unless I feel like you pull off a special teams and defense and kind of like last week. I think he's just got you in almost every position group this week.
I am hoping CD plays, but that's not gonna.
That could be a difference maker. Yep.
It could. I really need a difference maker at running back, but I lost mine already in Henry. I can't believe that.
All right, who do you want to go to next?
You pick.
No, you got it. I'll pick out the teams as you say it.
Let's do you and Scales.
Me and Scales. All right, let me pop this open really quick. It takes like a second. All right, so Scales and I, Scales has the lead on me all time at 7-5. And he beat me earlier in week one, 122 to 116. A lot of close rematches going on from earlier in the season. Jerry, I'll let you take it away since this is my matchup. Feel free to roast me. I know Scales doesn't have a kicker in here, so let's assume he fills that spot.
He may have dropped his kicker. His kicker is probably droppable.
I don't know, man. His kickers probably aren't, but everybody else is.
I thought you made a great pickup with when I saw that Kyler was out. I was like, dang, that's awesome because I wonder what Bryson's going to do because there wasn't a lot on the wire. And then Cousins played a hell of a game against Green Bay.
He did, yeah.
And Thielen helped you out, but Pittman didn't do much. But that was last week.
Yeah, that was game script because Taylor was just doing everything.
Yeah. This week you got Cousins, but you got Jefferson on the other side, so those could kind of negate each other, especially the way Jefferson's been playing. That was unreal last game. I think he had like 8 catches, 170 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Scales is getting Henderson back. He's also waiting on big news from Kamara. I think if he gets Kamara back, that could really help. That could really help him. If he doesn't, who does he have on his bench? I think he was in this situation last week because he traded away.
He would move Coleman in there, and then he'd have to play like Tony,
who isn't bad. Tony got a ton of targets last week, but just not a lot of yardage. And
his quarterback's freaking terrible. But I mean, yeah, he gets so much of that short yardage and then just jukes people out. You never know.
I don't love Hawkinson. I don't think Hawkinson's really done much, so you should have a huge advantage.
He's got Kelsey on bye, which really hurts him this week.
Oh, yeah. That testing. Wow, those are 2 high-powered offenses on bye. I didn't think about that. KC and Arizona. Could affect a lot of matchups this week. I don't know why he put in Coleman. I guess is he supposed to be the guy after Carter?
I think so, but he just doesn't have a ton of other options. I mean, I think with his lineup, he has to play Tevin Coleman. As long as Kamara plays, maybe he can make some changes. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of options.
No, you're catching him on a good week too. I mean, is Jones still hurt? So you got Dillon and Thielen and Pittman. Yeah. Tampa Bay sounds bad, but I think Tampa Bay's front is really good. The back end isn't that great, so you could see Wentz throwing a ton. I think I'm going to have to go with you winning, especially if Kamara doesn't play. If Kamara doesn't play, he's going to be grasping for straws. But if he does come back, he could come back and not even really play that much. He's just coming off a big injury. It didn't look like he was ready to go Sunday, and then so 3 days later or 4 days later on Thursday, he might not be ready to go. So, so Scales gets Henderson back, but I feel like he moves a couple steps back with no Kelsey, who had a big game last week, and then he's streaming a quarterback every week. Heineke's not a bad quarterback to stream at home, but I don't think he'll match up with Cousins and guys that you're rolling out. So I think you're gonna win, which is good for me if I think if I win.
Why is it good for you?
Me. No, I guess it gets Scales off my back, but then I'm still not trying to catch you. I guess it doesn't really matter who wins this one.
Yeah, because I think am I the highest in points of the 5 and 6 right now?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think your assessment's good. I think it does a lot hinge on Kamara. Him not having Kelsey this week is brutal. I do kind of want to go through the exercise. Who's he going to drop for a kicker? Who's the droppables here? I mean, Hubbard at this point, is it worth, just holding him for a handcuff when you're in this tight of a playoff race? Probably not. I mean, I can make the case Trey Lance in a redraft league. I don't know if any of these guys outside of Kelsey being on bye are non-droppables.
Right. I think Shmi already beat him to the Dallas wide receiver. If CD doesn't play, I think Gallup will have a huge game. I would definitely Lance, if I was managing this team, would be the one to drop.
Yep, I'm with you. Yeah, your assessment, I think once again, Matt Scales' weakness as quarterback. He's lucky, that Arizona's still in bye, although Kyler's been out. Cousins, I feel like, has been outperforming his projections the last couple of weeks that I've kind of spot started him since Kyler's gone down. So hopefully that holds up. He's got me in receiver, I think, here. Like you said, Justin Jefferson's just a beast. Moore's been, decent. I just you never know. I can get that double bonus if Cousins hits Thielen, but it could also go the other way. Tight end, I get lucky with Kelsey out. I think I've got a slight advantage, although Kittle last week was basically just saved by getting a touchdown. But really, to me, unless Kamara plays, I think running back is what's going to carry me through the week. I've got myself winning slightly here. If Kamara plays, I think it's more of a toss up, and maybe I win by 5. I think if he doesn't, I could run away with this one. So
Yep.
I'm going with me, which is the ultimate bad juju, but we'll see how it goes.
Good luck, man.
I
That'll
know.
be a fun one.
All right, let's see. Should we go to Nelson Taylor? There's some playoff implications there.
Yeah.
All right, let me add this up. Nelson's got to have the lead. I always play the guessing game of who I put in here first to see if I guess correctly who's got the series lead, and I'm wrong. So Taylor's got the series lead at 9-6-1.
Wow.
And Taylor beat Nels earlier, 88-63 in week 1. So
Ooh.
Nels with the revenge game, kind of a blowout, but really more so just a doo-doo game from Nels.
Yeah, I think that was the week he started Fitzpatrick, and Fitzpatrick got hurt in like the first quarter, just an unlucky break. I mean,
Yep.
that's the one thing you can't really foresee is if your guy gets hurt in the middle of the game. You can try and be active and look before the game if they're hurt or inactive, but middle of the game, I mean, that's just kind of bad luck.
Yep.
Now he's starting Cam Newton because I think he's never really had a quarterback all season. I'm not a big Cam Newton fan. I think he did well last week running the ball and throwing the ball. So maybe he's kind of revitalized, but you still can't doubt Nelson's wide receiver core with Allen, Evans, and Adams. Like those are 3 of the best in the league. But he may have found a matchup with, Diggs and Chase. Those are also 2 of the top 2. So it's going to be a fun wide receiver matchup. Harris and Gaskin. I like Harris, but I don't really like Gaskin. Schultz should have a decent game at tight end there, and then Philadelphia's defense. I think he just picked up going against the Giants, who are one of the lowest scoring teams of not only this season but last season as well under Jason Garrett. Man, this one's going to be close. Would you start Burrow over Newton? Who's Burrow?
So I was just saying that if it was me, I'd be playing Burrow. He's going against Pittsburgh, but I mean that's a division game, so who knows? Those can always be low scoring. I haven't looked at the forecast. It says there's a chance of rain, but not too bad, 25% chance. I'd have a hard time not playing Burrow here, but I get it. Cam against Miami, could be interesting. I don't know. I personally go with Burrow, but yeah. This one, like you said, I think receiver, you're going to see potentially some big numbers put out on both sides. But like you said, Taylor might be the one person who can compete at receiver with Diggs and Chase going against Evans and Adams. And you know what? Knowing Nels, I wouldn't be surprised if part of him playing Cam is just to hope that Cincy has a rough day and not have the fact that, hey, if Burrow throws a touchdown, it seems like 9 times out of 10 this year it's going to Jamar Chase. So maybe there's some logic from that standpoint. The rest of these, I think Dak's got the advantage at quarterback, although he came off a shitty game last week. To me, I see this close, but I'm giving Taylor a slight edge just because of the running back position. I think Chubb and Robinson I like quite a bit more than Harris and Gaskin going into this week. And Jacobs and Allen, you could say are a wash, but I might lean Jacobs a little bit from the flex position. So, I mean, he's got 3 decent running backs that I think will carry him to a slight victory in this one.
For sure. I'm surprised Nelson isn't looking at Patterson. Maybe I think he's supposed to play, so he's probably going to have to look at.
Yeah.
I think they were saying he was close last week and he had 10 days of rest. So and we'll see. The
Yeah, it could
matchup
be
that
a game changer for him. Yeah.
I do like Henry and Harris to have better games. Last time they were blowing out Atlanta, and so they didn't really pass it very much. But Henry gets a ton of red zone targets and is becoming a big target to Mac Jones. So this will be a really fun one. I definitely think Taylor has them in the running back department. Both wide receiver cores are great. I have Dak over Cam, so I think just by saying all that, I got to go Taylor.
Yep, I'm with you. I think the difference could be though that waiver pickup of Philly D. I could easily see Jones throwing a pick 6 or 2 and changing everything up. But yep, I'm gonna go with Taylor. Let's go with CT versus Jack.
This will be a fun one. Both perennial good owners. Jack, Jack has a championship and CT has a couple, and both way up there. And I guess what, they're 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, these two been consistent forever. Yeah, I think they're 1 and 2. You were cutting out on me a little bit, but if I
Yes,
go to
sorry
it,
about that.
they're 1 and 3 all time in the GOAT rankings, and
Okay.
else is sandwiched in between there. But what was it going head to head? They've played each other 21 times. Now, again, that's including playoffs, so I'm sure they've
Hmm.
had a lot of those matchups. But CT's had Jack's number. He's 14-7 against him, which I find impressive. And he's riled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row. He's beaten the last 3 years in the regular season and then twice in the championship bracket, including going back to the 2017 finals. Jack has yet CT, and CT's
Wow.
putting up. I mean, the last 3 times they've matched up, he's scored 170, 141, and 164. So, if somebody's going to put a stop to Jack's, come from behind route to the playoffs, it might be CT. If he beats CT, he might be looking at like the Giants when they came in with Eli and backed into the playoffs and then won it all. Watch out, you never know what
Mhm.
could happen. But yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup. What do you think on this one?
This one is very interesting. You look at the quarterbacks. I mean, I like Wentz, but with Jonathan Taylor's emergence, I don't think Wentz is as as great as a fantasy quarterback. I'm sure he's a great real life quarterback at just handing it off and making the good throws, but not for fantasy, as especially with Herbert. Um, Antonio Brown, I think, is hurt. Not Antonio. That's AJ Brown. He does have Antonio, but I think can you click on that? What are they saying about AJ
Uh,
Brown? That Q at the top. Yeah,
that's the wrong Brown. Yeah. Oh no, I got it.
that's right.
Uh, so he just wasn't practicing. It avoided anything seriously. They expect him to be out there this week, so it just sounds like
Okay,
typical stuff. He's not practicing, but it's nothing major.
that's good because he's gonna need him. You got John. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running back in the NFL right now. So it's good to have him. But this is the one team you don't really want to go against is Tampa Bay in that front. He's kind of lucky Vita Vea is out. Otherwise, I think they'd be the one team that could stop Jonathan Taylor. CT desperately needs Jordan Howard. Hang on 1 second.
Yeah, I think you're going to go with you need Jordan Howard not to play to guarantee Miles Sanders gets the bulk of those carries. Is I think what you're going with there.
Yeah, sorry, wife and kid just came in. Yeah, if Jordan Howard is out, that's going to be huge for Sanders because I think Philly at the beginning of the season was trying to throw it a lot with Hurts. That's not the quarterback he is. They've kind of found their identity now with running the ball, and
Well,
I mean
I
they've
don't know if
rattled
you
off some
saw
wins.
that game. I mean, I'm a Sanders owner in my other league, and he was in the doghouse. He fumbled twice in that game, and they wanted to go to Howard, and he basically had like I think 2 carries after the second fumble, and then Howard got hurt, and then he ended up having a nice day. So Howard being out, I think, would give Sanders the opportunity to get out of the doghouse a little bit, which would be big for his team.
For sure, because I think even if Howard's out, they have Scott, but I think Sanders and Scott, you would still play Sanders because I don't think Gainwell's getting much. I think he may have been a healthy scratch, but that would be a big boost for CT. So CT's really waiting for that news. There's the Williams who's splitting time with Gordon. That's a good play against that defense. Their LAC's rush defense is the worst in the league. Going against Gibson, Barkley, and Swift, those are all three pretty good running backs. I'm pretty jealous, especially with the way my running back situation is. They're not like great, but they're not terrible. So to have three pretty mediocre to good running backs is a good problem to have. He's starting Myers. I don't really watch New England that much, but I guess is he the number one receiver out of New England?
I would have a hard time starting Myers over Waddle.
I would too. Oh, for sure. I didn't even know. I didn't see Waddle.
He's got Waddle on his bench. I don't know if he knows something we don't know, but when I was looking at his bench, I'm like, man, I would be starting Waddle in a second over Myers.
I would too. I'm sure if you looked at Fantasy Pros, they probably have Waddle ranked ahead. I think Waddle's
they've got Myers 35 and Waddle 23. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, I may have cut out there, but I think Waddle's like top 5 in targets. That's always a good problem to have if they're targeting you. Ah, man, this is going to be close. Jack caught CT on a great week with no Mahomes. Because Mahomes, you never know, could go off for 50. Debo against Minnesota, that's a hell of a matchup. I hope Jack makes a better decision than Myers. Dang, I think this is gonna be close.
I'm with you. I think this is gonna be extremely close. And like you said, CT. It's just funny. It's like as bad as Jack's season started out, it seems like he's catching breaks down in the back end, and now he goes against his. I kind of want to call it arch nemesis, although Nelson would have something to say about that. And he's got no Mahomes, and it just seems like you might be catching him at a great time. Now, the one thing hope that CT's hoping for here, although it could be negative, it's kind of interesting. Like I feel like he's hedging a little bit. I could see Tampa just trying to go all out, stopping Taylor after Taylor's performance last week, and Wentz throwing it a lot, which would help him out at QB, but then he's going to be hurting at running back. I have a hard time believing both of those players are going to perform well. I feel like it's going to be one or the other. It'll be really interesting from that perspective. But I look up and down the lineup, and quarterback I have as a huge advantage for Jack this week. Running back, I think obviously Taylor is hard to overcome and probably gives him a slight advantage, but Swift and Barkley together over Taylor and Sanders, I could see that being a bit of a wash. I'm with you. Playing Myers seems suspect to me. Debo and Waddle, I feel like could put up numbers to compete with Brown and Johnson, and then I think he's got the advantage in the flex and at tight end. So I've got it pretty close, but I'm leaning towards Jack just because of the QB situation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer than what it currently has projected. If Barkley's healthy, I think I'm going to lean Jack just because, like you said, Herbert being healthy and and
I will be at the Tampa Bay Indianapolis game, and I just very much I could see a scenario where Wentz goes off, but to me that means Taylor's not involved. Now, Taylor has caught a lot of passes out of the backfield for TDs. If one or two of those go down, then you're looking maybe CT looks like a genius. But to me, I feel like that's a bit of a hedge, and when you're projected to be the underdog, I don't necessarily love that, but I'm not going to put it past CT to know what he's doing.
Yeah, I love it. That one's going to be a great matchup.
I mean, that would put Jack at 5-7. I mean, you would think there's going to be quite a few 5-7 teams next week that are going to be just on that edge. So he wins this game, he is officially in the playoff hunt. I mean, I could argue he is now, but man, but he also loses this game, and I think he's out.
Yep.
Do or die. All right. Who do we got left here? We've got Let's go to, is it just RO? We got to have
Yeah,
one more, isn't there?
that's
Yeah.
it. RO and Mays is the last
Oh,
one.
God. I could take a guess at who's winning this all-time series. Poor Evan. Evan, once again, I want to say I know you're having the worst season of all time. That's coming from the person who's the worst player of all time. Please don't quit. The rumors have been out there. We need you in this league. We love you. We honestly think you've been drafting great the last 2 years. Your teams just fall apart and have horrible luck. So if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're not. Hang in there. Let's go after it next year. But that being said, RO is 8-2 all time against the Woat. Woat's gonna Woat. The start of the season, Evan had all the accolades coming out of the draft. Week 1 runs into RO and loses 120 to 116.
Oh my gosh, that sucks.
And I think what did Evan must have won the next week and then dropped 9 in a row. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's just rough. A rough start. And then McCaffrey. It's just been a shit show. Not yeah. It's just been a shit show for Mays. But yeah. Let's get into it.
You gotta love. I think Indy has a pretty good defense, but that Brady to Godwin connection, if Antonio Brown is out, is always looks good. After that, there's definitely some holes because I don't know if Mitchell's going to start at his flex, and then I think
I
I
think
I
he
traded
doesn't.
him Collins.
Yeah, I mean, Boston Scott potentially, depending on the Howard news. I don't know.
He's probably looking at picking somebody up if Mitchell's out, and I would expect that if they didn't think Mitchell could go last week, he's got the same injury. He had like finger surgery or something, so I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But I'm
Yeah.
not a doctor or team doctor, but he's just gonna hinge on that Tampa Bay Indy game. Him and CT should go watch that together. That would be a great.
They could come up and just go to the game with me.
I was gonna say you should go to that one. That would be a great game.
I am going to that one. I was
Oh, you
serious.
are? I
Yeah,
didn't
I'll
hear you
be
say
there
that.
on
That's
Sunday.
awesome.
Yep.
I'm jealous.
It should be a good one. My mom is a avid Tom Brady fan, so my dad and I are Colts fans, so we'll be rooting for them to beat down the old man.
I guess this is the best matchup to talk about. Did you see that they settled in St. Louis for like 790 million or something?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm disappointed it was less than $1 billion, but and part of me just wanted to see them have to air out their laundry in the court case. But 790 million is nothing to blink at. They're going to split
Yep.
that 3 ways. I think the state gets 170 million, the city gets 170 million, and the county gets 170 million. I'm sure it'll all go to great uses, but at least we got some kind of retribution. So fuck Stan Kroenke. I wish they could have aired his dirty laundry a little bit more, but whatever. Fuck
Yeah.
that guy.
All right, back to the matchup. I mean, I think RO is just catching a good. I mean, RO and I kind of have the same team. I mean, we lost some players to injury, but he's got Brady, Godwin, Gronk. That's always a good combo. I think he made a good trade with Montgomery, and he should have a great game against Detroit. I think they're the second worst rush defense, just behind the Chargers. So Chicago defense, I think, was one of the great waiver wire pickups. In other leagues, I picked them up just going against Goff and Detroit. I think Mays has a few, bright spots. Hurts against the Giants should be fun. He's been playing a lot better. Cooks against the Jets sounds good, but Cooks just hasn't really been producing like he did at the beginning of the season. He's got McCaffrey against Miami, which is great, but Zach Moss is splitting backfield time with Singletary, and New Orleans has one of the best rush defenses in the NFL. Mike Davis is not really doing anything.
Yeah.
I can't believe he's starting Atlanta's defense. I would still go RO. I think RO wins a lot more than what it's projected. I would say by 10 or 15, RO takes this one.
So I've actually got this one fairly close.
Oh, okay.
What I really like the matchup is Brady, man, to hit those projections is hard. I think Indy could keep him a little bit out of the end zone. There's a lot that'll hinge on that. Again, I'm biased there, but if Indy's D can contain Tampa at all, that spells trouble for Ryan RL. But I really like the Jalen Hurts versus Giants matchup. I think the Giants are horrible. Jalen Hurts is just vulturing every rushing touchdown that Philly has. I don't feel like they trust Sanders with ball security. I could easily see him having 2-3 touchdowns on the ground again. So I actually could see Hurts, keeping up with Brady, which makes this thing interesting. McCaffrey and Montgomery's great, but McCaffrey, I think you will at least match him or outdo him. It'll be interesting to see if Waller can live up to expectations. The other thing is, maybe this is where I'm going. I'm hoping Mays listens to this. He needs to sub out Mike Davis for Jerry Jeudy. I think that would give him a better chance in the flex spot. So I'm not sure what he's doing. I'm not going to text him. I think that is inappropriate, but I will call it out on the podcast. Evan Mays, switch your lineup. But I think receiver, starting Callaway, we'll see how that goes. I think that's where Mays might be able to get to RO this week. And I just got a feeling, and it's probably me thinking more with my heart than my head. I just want to go with Evan here and see if he can turn things around. Obviously, he's going to load it up for the year, but I'd like to see him get out of the cellar and not have the worst team of all time. So I'm going with
RO. It'll still be fun to see what Mays can do. I think you made a great assessment. He has two great matchups, but just the way the rest of his roster is constructed, you just can't trust him every week. But yeah, Hurst does have a great matchup this week. I think a lot of teams are trying to sell out on Waller now that Ruggs is gone, is something that I heard. So Waller's been having a tough time getting the ball since they have really no one going over the top anymore.
And Gronk looked good in his return. So yeah, you could totally see potentially, that flipping and Gronk beating out Waller this week. It'll be interesting to see what Indy's able to do to that Tampa defense, or Tampa offense, or if Tampa just runs shop on them. I don't know. I'll be there yelling. So hopefully I'll be trying to help you out, Evan.
RO's worst enemy is Leonard Fournette, really, if you think about it.
100%.
Mike Evans might not play, and Tom Brady loves to target. So if Fournette can have a terrible game, then I think RO is going to get plenty of points from his little trio there.
I agree. Yeah. If Tampa's scoring, unless it's Fournette, it's going to be Godwin or Gronk probably. Yep. All right. Ooh, cough. All right. Anything else you want to talk about? Going into things. I mean, I think we covered most of it. I mean, it's tight. It's fun. I like the extra week. Not only I heard this on a podcast the other day, and it's so true. It's like the extra playoff spot, I think, is going to be interesting down the stretch, and the fact that you're going to have more teams actively trying down the stretch, less players being sat. We've got everybody pretty much in it except for Mod at this point. And this is one of the more fun but more parody like years I think we've had. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, last little personal tidbit. I mean, I thought I was completely done when Henry went out and I lost Ridley. And had I beat Jack, I would actually be. I mean, I lost to Jack by 2, just didn't play the right wide receiver. I'd be at 6-5 right in there, even though I lost Henry and Ridley. So it's been a really fun season. I'm still really involved in this league, and as I should be. I'm right in the mix. Don't have the best team, but still in the mix, and so do a lot of other teams. So this has been one of the funner years. So
Barry, I think you just gave me an idea for an end of the season recap show segment. What could have been? I think there's going to be so many teams in that middle area that either just squeeze in or don't, that we're going to look back. Like if I miss it, it's going to be last week that I was playing you. I think like you called out, everybody's going to have that game where they're just like, man, if I would have just done this one thing, or one thing hadn't happened, it's going to be wild. So it should be a lot of fun.
We'll do that at the end. That'll be a fun recap after the season. So
absolutely.
All righty. Well,
all right. Have a good one. Thanks for hopping on. All right,
see you.